Madam Secretary, this is not your first trip to the House. A year ago, you appeared before the House Appropriations Committee. And at the time, those of us in Connecticut were sort of taken off guard by the fact that you cited a story by a gentleman named Michael, who you spoke to apparently around that time period, who grew up in East Hartford, Connecticut, and who described his experience at East Hartford High School as a very low-functioning, sort of high-risk environment. You quoted him describing East Hartford High School as nothing more than adult daycare, a dangerous daycare. Within about 48 hours, the governor of the state of Connecticut, Congressman John Larson, my colleague who attended East Hartford High School and taught at East Hartford High School, the school superintendent for East Hartford, and also students wrote to you directly, again, within 48 hours, objecting to the characterization that you publicly stated as the highest education official in the land. Again, to date, they still have not received a response. In fact, 2 weeks later at the Senate, you repeated the story, and according to the CT Mirror, which is a local newspaper outlet in the state of Connecticut, you've told that story now 4 times in public. And again, for the record, Madam Chairwoman, I ask that these letters be put into the record. Thank you. And I would just note that, again, the invitation was given in those letters for you to actually come visit, which, again, has not occurred. So I thought today maybe I'd bring a little bit of East Hartford High School to Washington. And I have a chart here which shows the campus of East Hartford High School. The building on the right is the main facility for the high school. There's a tunnel that's attached to a second structure, which is a high school magnet school that was constructed within the last 10 years. That gentleman you spoke with graduated 17 years ago. That's who you cited as some kind of expert or person who knows East Hartford High School. That magnet school, which again shares programs and facilities with the students at East Hartford High School, was ranked number 2 of all high schools in the state of Connecticut by U.S. News and World Report, and number 125 for the entire country in terms of high schools. East Hartford High's numbers in terms of absenteeism and in terms of test scores have been going up, something which the superintendent pointed out to you in the correspondence, which again, you still to this day have not responded. I know a little bit about this because the magnet school is a place where my daughter attended school. She graduated in 2013. My wife is a pediatric nurse practitioner. She would not send my daughter, or our daughter, to a dangerous environment. So again, number one, will you please respond to letters that were written politely, not vitriolically, to the facts that they point out, the current facts regarding the programs that are happening there at East Hartford High School, which again, U.S. News and World Report has recognized.
Thanks, Congressman, for that question and for your advocacy for East Hartford High School. I'm very pleased to hear.
Yeah, I asked you a question. Will you respond to the letters a year later, please?
As soon as I get enough of my staff in place to be able to appropriately respond, as you know.
Well, I think that's, you know, a year is really a pretty good latitude in terms of responding to mail. And secondly, will you please accept the invitation to come and see for yourself what's happening there? Again, what you will see is that the accountable magnet school approach, which your department and your budgets have been underfunding. At the same time, you've been overfunding unaccountable charter schools, which again is part of the ideology, obviously, of this department. What you will see is that the magnet approach, which promotes diversity for students as well as quality, and actually is accountable to the public and to the taxpayer, which again is far from the case in many charter schools, which again are clearly been getting the lion's share of the budgets that you've been sending over. So again, I would encourage you to answer your mail after a year, and secondly, that you would come up to Connecticut and actually see whether or not this gentleman's whose 17-year-old story, frankly, has been overtaken by real life and real events. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. Mr. Okita, you're recognized for 5 minutes.